Network. Back for, this is technically week 14. Bob Adders and Ed Sarlucci here at River Rock Restaurant, Marina Bar, and Brick tonight. Our penultimate show of the season. That means the second to last for any, yeah, exactly. Already someone going, what does that mean? Second to last show. This is our last regular season show, I guess you could say. Our award special, which we do each and every year, will be next week. We'll be at Asylum Sports Center in Wall, and that is where we will unveil our season-ending awards: MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and our Shore Sports Network Team of the Year. And that will take up the entire 1 hour, maybe a little bit more. We're excited because we'll be joined by Kevin Williams back with the bookend. He was there for the first one at Asylum. He'll be there for the last one. Kevin doing a lot better in his recovery from back surgery. So excited for that. But, again, we have a ton to talk about because we were off the air last week on Thanksgiving Eve, the one night where nobody wants us in the restaurant because that is the busiest night for bars and restaurants. Did you know that? Not New Year's Eve.
Yes, I did. Oh, yes.
The busiest night for restaurants.
You have to remember that our partner, Matt Harmon, owns a bar.
He does.
So he used to say, I got to get out of here.
He does.
I got to get out of here. Yeah.
The boathouse down there in Belmar. So since last time we were on the air, we had a lot of important games. We had NJSI AA sectional championship games. We had an overall non-public state championship game. We had our 4 Thanksgiving games. And we also have a regional championship game to preview coming up on Saturday at Rutgers, Point Borough versus Haddonfield. That will be the final game of the season. So we'll preview that a little bit later. We'll have a written preview on the website. But this is really our wrap-up show. Ed, from August, late August, early September, doing our previews, getting everything set, excited for a season. To now here we are a couple months later. It's cold outside. It's not the time to be sitting eating out on the deck here at River Rock.
We had shorts on for most of the season until, like you said, the last couple of weeks when the 30 degrees has hit.
Yeah. So, and here we are. So a lot to get to, a lot to recap in terms of, how the division races went, championships won, some of the top players, surprise teams. We have new divisions. The Shore Conference divisional alignment for 2022 is released, so we're going to jump into that. But first, we have to touch on the state champions. And right now, in terms of legit overall state champions, we have one, and that's the Casey's of Red Bank Catholic. They went up to MetLife Stadium last Friday night, and they defeated DePaul Catholic 13-8 to win the NJSI AA non-public B state championships, their 4th state championship in program history, their 3rd since 2014. And Ed, I was there at MetLife. I know you watched it on the stream. The story was just a tremendous defensive performance by the Caseys. DePaul, a very good team, certainly play up in the Big North, not the Big North anymore, that New Jersey Super Football Conference, I should say. That white division, which is the second division, with Group 2, Group 3 schools. Just a great team, ranked number 3 in the state by NJ.com coming in. And the Caseys had an all-time defensive performance. Clutch plays on offense, and they come away with what was really a thrilling state championship victory and what I thought was a tremendous game, really well-played game, and the kind of game you expect the state championship to be.
Yeah, it came down to the last play of the game
when
DePaul had a chance. Basically, Hail Married it into the end zone, bounced around a few times, but when it fell, all heck broke loose for RBC, and a well-deserved state championship.
So the Caseys, it was the defense that got it done. Mm-hmm. And I could probably list every single player on the defense and a couple more that came in and played some significant snaps. Alex Bauman, their outstanding senior defensive end, seemed like he was in the backfield on every play. Christian Ungama, one of their defensive backs, near the line of scrimmage a lot, had a big sack and a forced fumble, tackle for loss, a couple hurries that created some havoc there. Davin Bruton, their sophomore linebacker, he finished with 18 tackles. It seemed like he probably had about 50. Michael Palmieri, the list goes on in terms of players who really played well. Sabina Portello, their outstanding two-way junior, had an interception. One of those total team efforts that you talk about a lot, and it was really true in this case. That DePaul team is very dangerous. They ran the ball well. They ran for just under 200 yards, but they moved the ball really in the middle of the field, and RBC buckled down when they needed to, got really important stops. DePaul couldn't throw the ball. Their quarterback actually came out of the game early in the game. He threw an interception, and then what we had heard is they suspected concussion, so they took him out of the game. That was a player with throwing for over 1,400 yards. Now, when they took him out, RBC had forced him. I think he was 1 of 4 for about 6 yards and a pick. So, just a tremendous defensive performance, and that's why the Caseys can call themselves state champions today.
Yeah, there's no doubt DePaul went into that game figuring they could run the football, and they did, as you said, near 200 yards rushing. That's why those defensive numbers for RBC were so high, as far as tackles were concerned, because they ran the ball, but when they got close, RBC got as tough as ever and, came up with a couple of big sacks. I was watching the game on stream, so I'm watching it on a smaller screen than if I was there or in the press box. And, I try to jot down certain things here and there, and every name, every check mark had Alex Bauman next to it, because he made some big, important stops in that football game. One, specifically on a sack, and then one out of bounds where he pushed the kid out of bounds to save.
I think you think about it, he had a big tackle for a loss. I think on like a second down where he knifed in and got the running back. And I know the other play, short completion, and I could have turned it to Moore, and he was able to come back off his defensive end position, push the ball out of bounds.
Opposite side and just hustles, all the time, and just an outstanding two-way player.
A great player. One of the things that jumped out in that game was, I looked at the final stats, and DePaul ran the ball. 197 yards is certainly very solid. But where RBC really made its money was, third and fourth down, the clutch moments. I want to say DePaul was – I had the numbers in my story. Probably should have written them down. But they were something like 3 of 13 on third down and 2 of 6 on fourth down. And that's – look, you want to point to a spot. RBC was able to get off the field and able to force some punts and just did a great job. And then offensively, RBC, first drive of the game, this is the DePaul team that had, their defense, excellent. If you had to pick which side of the ball was the best for DePaul, you pick the defense. And RBC, first drive of the game, they go down. 8 plays, 71 yards, score. And talking to some other reporters there who covered DePaul throughout the year, they said they haven't seen anyone do that in DePaul all year. So that was very impressive. And then the second drive, which ended up being the game winner, the go-ahead touchdown drive, I should say. DePaul had scored, come right out, started the third quarter, and went down and scored to make it. I think to take the lead, And then RBC's answer: 14 plays, 71 yards. They punch it in on an Alex Brown touchdown run, and there's the game. So you talk about coming up with just clutch responses on both sides of the ball, and that's what it was. And I think they'll look back fondly on the state championship, certainly because they won it, but the way in which they won it. A lot of gut check moments, a lot of show me moments, and they certainly came through.
Yeah, offensively, I thought that a lot of those gut check moments were led by Alex Brown, the quarterback. I mean, he had some big third down runs to keep the drive going and so on. And, those last 4 or 5 games for RBC, Alex Brown, came up really big. Of course, the more dramatic moment came, when his mom had passed away on a Thursday night, and he went out and scored 8 touchdowns, or was part. He threw for
6 and ran for
6
2.
and ran for 2. I mean, those stories are what movies are made from. That's for sure.
Yeah, he threw for I believe 7 touchdowns in the playoffs, and I'm trying to remember, threw for 7, ran for 5 in 3 playoff games. Just tremendous. And look, that's. Yeah, he had 8 in one game, and that was epic. But, we did it again in the semifinals with 2 more touchdowns in the second half in the win over St. Joe's. And, just came up with clutch plays, a very resilient player, certainly for what happened off the field. But then on the field, just within the lines, big moments you need to play. And he said it to us after the game. Joe Zidales, our friend from NJ.com, asked him, he said, hey, they had the answer for Alex Brown, the passer. And then he finished it. He said, yeah, but not the runner. And that was kind of the story in a lot of moments this year. He was able to just do what he needed to. He escaped some sacks this year in some games. You said, how the heck did he do that? And he was just great all season, and he was great in that game. And it was a fun game to cover just because of what was at stake. Certainly, to be a homer for a second when our local team wins. Yeah, we cover them all year. It's nice to see them succeed, and it was just a great game all around.
Let me ask you this, Bob. I'm not sure if you know the answer to this. Will the A winner, non-public A, play the non-public B next year?
No, that will not.
Play it all the way out.
No.
In the public schools.
No, that's gonna stay, because think of it as in Group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in football.
North
one
will
is
play
not
South.
well. The Group 1 champion is not going to play Group 3 because two different school
No,
sizes. That's the
they're gonna
same
play
way
one.
it's looked at non-public, where A is the bigger ones, B is the smaller ones. So A would be
I
an
think
A
that
would be like
good-
a 3 or 4
I
playing.
think in a lot of situations, though, that would be a pretty good game.
It would,
I mean, think
but
about,
it'll never do it
think
because then
about
it sets
Bergen-
a precedent.
Yeah, think about Bergen Catholic playing RBC this year. I mean, that could be a great game.
Could be, but
And
we'll never know.
And they've gone. RBC has gone up there. They were in A. Were they in A?
Well,
few years
it's now
back.
gone back to A and B, where
A
it used to
and B.
be
Used to be
4,
one.
3, 2, and
Right.
even 1. They got rid of 1,
Mm-hmm.
then they got rid of 2. Then it was just 3 and 4, and I think with that they said let's just go to A and B. So
Well, RBC gets their reward, as we'll talk about in a little while. They move up to the American Division next year.
they will, and we will exactly. We will certainly get into that later on. We touch on the new divisions, but so RBC state champs. Congratulations to the Caseys, their staff, all their players, their program. Certainly a job well done getting that done at MetLife Stadium. We'll rewind, which was a full week from that Friday night, and that was November 19th, the public school sectional championship games. We had how many do we have? 5 teams playing for
one
titles,
winner.
and we had one champion, and that was Point Pleasant Borough, 32-8 win over Willingboro to take home the South Jersey Group 2 championship. Another game, I was lucky. I picked that game to go. I happened to pick the right one. Also picked it because it was about a 5-minute drive. And logistically, it was easy of sending our reporters out to cover things. And again, we just talked about defense, and that was the story again for Point Borough. Defense against a Willingboro team with a power rushing attack, a running back who kind of looked like Derrick Henry a little bit, where he was just a beast carrying guys, and the Panthers just played a tremendous game. Their defense was awesome. Tyler
Did
Gordon.
they jump out, Willingboro?
Willingboro went out. It was 7-0 lead. Point Borough went 3 and out. Willingboro went down. 8-0. Scored.
Right.
Went for 2. And then and then we'll get right into it. Point Borough on that next series, they're staring at another 3 and out, and it's 3rd and 8. And what do? They go over the middle. Charlie Vitale to Connor Salento, 68-yard touchdown. Boom. They missed the extra point, so it's 8-6, but that changed the whole game. And from there, Point Borough, just every drive got better, just chipped away. Their defense played better and better. And all of a sudden there it was, 32-8. And the finishing touch was their junior linebacker and running back, Tyler Gordon, with a 25-yard interception return for a touchdown. And I was tweeting too. I'm like, man, it's close. You felt pretty good at it. It was 25-8. And then he returned that. It was, it was almost party time. And you could feel it there on the sidelines. Even those coaches, especially Brian Staub, inside they were feeling good at 25-8, but at 32-8, they were even those guys had a hard time holding the smile.
Began.
So yeah, an awesome win for Point Borough, and Charlie Vitale, their senior quarterback, had the long touchdown pass to Salento. He ran for a touchdown. Gordon had 2 touchdown runs and the pick 6. Jay Croce, their outstanding sophomore fullback, had about 70 yards on the ground. And again, defensively, it really was that team effort. The guys up front, Charlie Davison, they were great sophomore defensive linemen. Their linebackers, J.J. Bennett, Connor Reynolds, Aiden Ward, with Gordon, Croce even, and Vitale on defense. It took all 11 just to kind of clog up the piles there. Willingboro couldn't throw the ball at all.
Yeah.
Point Borough did a great job of that, forced them into some 3rd and longs. And, you just started getting the feeling where you felt Willingboro was in the game, and all of a sudden you looked up and you said, no, they're not. They can't even move the ball, and that's a credit to the Panthers. So a sectional championship, their first one since 2005 when they went 12-0 and won the title back under Calvin Thompson. It was their first time in the final since 2017. This time they come away with the win. So great job by the Panthers.
Keep in mind that Vitale is gone. He's a senior, but a lot of players coming back.
A ton of guys coming back.
Pleasant Borough.
And we won't put
kids.
the cart before the horse there, because the Panthers still have one more game left, and that's against Haddonfield in the regional championship game. That's coming up Saturday. But you're right. Charlie Vitale is one of the few seniors they graduate. They do graduate a couple, especially on the offensive and defensive lines, but they bring back a ton of really good players in the junior class and also in the sophomore class. So you have a lot of players that are just sophomores this year that will be coming back. So this could be just the beginning of a special run for Point Borough, and that's what they're hoping. Talking to their head coach Brian Staub early in the season, he likened it to that 2017 team where things were starting to come together. The difference was with that team, they were 8-2 the year before, so you really saw the writing on the wall. Then they went 11-1, reached the championship game, ended up losing the Hillside. These past 3 years for Point Borough, they were under 500. So to turn it around this year, right now they're 10-1, going to try to go 11-1 and finish it off. Just a great job by that entire program. They bought into what they needed to do in the offseason, and it's cliche, but it's what you need to do as players and coaches, and they certainly did it.
Overall, I guess you would have to say there was a lot of disappointment in the Shore. With the other 4 losses. The most devastating was Toms River North's loss to Kingsway in the last, 7 seconds?
It was, and not by seed or anything like that. It's not like Toms River was a heavy favorite. The Mariners were the home team. They were actually the 3 seed coming in. Kingsway was the 4 seed. That bracket got turned upside down early with Lenape beating Washington Township to 8 over the 1. And then Edison beating Manalapan, which was the 2, and then we ended up getting to the final. But so Kingsway's up 14-6. Toms North goes down the field under a minute left. Micah Ford throws a touchdown pass to Jeremiah Pruitt. They need to go for 2. They do. Ford runs in. They get it. So it's tied up. 14-14. I want to say 57 seconds left.
That's it.
And then Kingsway goes down the field, throws a touchdown pass with 7 seconds left, and they end up winning the game 21-14. So, look, to lose a championship game is devastating no matter what, because you get that far, and to come away short is a tough one. But, yeah, to lose it that way, I mean, yeah, they'll get over it eventually, but that's going to take a while, just in the manner in which you lost. And, reading head coach Dave Oswald's quotes after the game, he said, the North made too many mistakes, and Kingsway was the better team, and all those things. But still, you're right there. It's 14-14. You have a chance. So certainly a tough loss for the Mariners. Is there a silver lining? Not for the seniors, because those kids don't get another chance. So you certainly want to recognize that. But that is a team just like Point Borough, even more so, that is extremely young. And we talked about when we had them on our last show at the Office Lounge in Toms River. You look at almost all of their top standout players are especially their skill players, are sophomores. And they have a sophomore in the line. They have a freshman started on the offensive line. So there are pieces there. Sometimes the scar tissue, so to speak, these kind of moments can build that character and kind of light that fuse. And maybe we're talking to them at the end of next year or even in 2 years, and they're looking back on that game, talking about how it motivated them. So the future is very bright for the Mariners, considering what they got back and how much those players got better this year in reaching a championship game.
It's hard to say now, but maybe the inexperience of all those young kids that you just mentioned hurt them a little bit at the end of that game, because I'm sure 90% of them were thinking overtime and let's get to overtime and see what happens. And as you said, in the last 57 seconds, they drive it all the way down, Kingsway, and scores. That will only help them in the future and next year. Micah Ford, the young sophomore, had a tremendous year at quarterback, as so many other quarterbacks in the Shore did, but he was up there right, up top with some of the best ones in the Shore Conference. So look for him to be a real leader next year. He's a good player, and Dave Oswitz will look for him to lead the Mariners in the next 2 years.
Absolutely a great season. Another surprising result. I'm not going to say shocking, because the team that won is a very good team. That's Woodrow Wilson, which went into Rumson and won 28-6 over the top-seeded Bulldogs. It was the 2 over the 1, so you can't look at it and say, oh, my gosh, it's a huge upset. But and that game also, the final score is a little deceiving, because that was a very close game until late, when Rumson actually scored to make it, I believe, I want to say it was a 14-6 or a 16-6 game. And then right after that, Woodrow Wilson scored on a long touchdown run. And then they added the pick 6 late when Rumson was just trying to push the ball down the field in desperation. So the Bulldogs' incredible run, in championship games, at least defensively, kind of got dinged a little bit. Again, they gave up 3 touchdowns to an excellent offensive team. So it's not like they went out and played terrible. What really was tough for them was offensively. Their senior running back, Jeff Schroeder, got hurt early in that game. Dinged up I believe it was his ankle. But either way, he got hurt and he's out of the game. And there's not
carries, right?
And there's not another player to come in that can match that. And you're relying on Rumson, that offense, that 2-man game with their quarterback Colin Kennedy and then Schroeder, and that dynamic aspect there. And without that, I mean, they just didn't have the horses on offense, and it was tough to kind of find any explosive plays there, especially when the other team knows what you're going to do. Again, though, it was a close game right down to the wire. Rumson's defense actually played well, considered. You look at the 28 points, and you think no. But again, the game kind of got away late. But Rumson, that was their 8th straight sectional championship game they were appearing in. A fantastic senior class, which they're really going to miss. And we say that about every team every year, but John List at linebacker, Ryan McKay at linebacker, 2 of the very best. I'll say not just in the shore, but in the state. Aiden Moriarty, one of the best defensive ends around. Standouts, again, Schroeder, Colin Kennedy, really good linemen. So Rumson reloads. They do every year, but that's a tough one, especially at home. First time they were able to have a championship game at home. And unfortunately, they were not able to come away with it. So Woodrow Wilson, picked up that victory.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I've been in games like that where, you lose one of your stars early in the game, and all of a sudden on the sideline as coaches, you've got to go from plan A to plan B very quickly, and they just were not able to recover offensively,
Yes.
as you said. Defensively, they played great and good enough to win, but they just were not able to get that offensive going. And, they needed somebody else to go with Kennedy at quarterback to, keep that offense on the field a little bit longer than they did.
Yeah, you didn't want to get in passing situations
Right.
with Wilson, because one thing they do really, really well year in year out is they get after the quarterback. You look at some of their stats, and you got 5, 6, 7 guys with 4 or 5 sacks, and they bring pressure from places, and that's not Rumson's game to drop back and throw it a million times too. So they had to really adjust their offense once Schroeder got out of the game. You try to stick with what you do, but eventually you realize that's not working. You got to try to scheme some things up, and it's a good defense they were playing against, so it wasn't easy. Raritan in the Central Jersey Group 2 final, they fell to Haddonfield 28-7. The one thing about Raritan, now their defense has given up points all year, but their offense has matched it pretty much every game. They've shown they could score on anybody. Haddonfield, talking to Scott Stump, our colleague who helps us out, playoff time, he said it wasn't anything. You look at Haddonfield and nothing special, and not in a derogatory way. Just they don't have a player that is going to scare you. One kid you have to focus on, but they're just solid. They play tough. They don't make mistakes. They're well coached, and they just kind of added one here, pulled away, and then they played great defense against Raritan. Made Raritan one-dimensional, which is hard to do because they run that triple option. They can beat you in a bunch of different ways. They really focused on taking Joe Campanella away, who was their big-time playmaker as a slot-back. And they kind of just let Kieran Falzone just get the ball from that, A-back or full-back position. A little different Raritan's offense because it's out of the pistol. And Falzone had a big game, ran for a game-high, I think 142 yards and a touchdown. But, if you can make a team one-dimensional, as you know, give yourself a better chance. And that was what Haddonfield's strategy was, and they were able to do that and come away with the win. So Raritan, you look at their final record, it's 6-5. You don't think it's anything great, but they made it to a sectional championship game. They were the number 1 seed for a reason, had a very good year, but unfortunately came up short in that championship game, and then that's why Haddonfield to move on to play Point Borough.
I think some of the numbers for Raritan will bode well for Point Pleasant Borough, who drew Haddonfield now in the regional games up at Rutgers University, 10 o'clock Saturday morning. They will lead it off up at Rutgers, so get up early and watch your Panthers.
I'll be leaving the house early to get for that one. And then the final sectional championship game on that Friday night, your alma mater, Ed.
Yeah.
Irvington took out Middletown South 28-13. Irvington was the top seed. Middletown South was up 13-7 at the half, but 21 unanswered points by Irvington to close out the game. They've been playing football for a long time there at Irvington, and that is the first sectional championship in program history. So while Middletown South, that's our team, and they lost.
I didn't win any when I was there in the 60s.
Breaking news.
In the early 60s.
Well, there was no sectional championships then, but
That's right.
The first one for Irvington, really good team. They've done it all year with defense, and they finally got the offense going, which says something because that's against a tremendous Middletown South defense, which is going to finish second, most likely in the shore in points allowed per game. So Irvington, you tip your cap to them. Middletown South, they've done it with defense all year. The offense, been opportunistic, but it hasn't been an explosive offense. And they were held down a little bit, just the one touchdown. Jake Wakefield had the 2 field goals for the Eagles. So they fell there to Irvington to not to close out their season because they got to play on Thanksgiving, but they were going for sectional championship number 11. That'll have to wait for another year.
Yeah, we could never, when I went to school at Irvington, like I said, in the early 60s, we could never get over the stigma of being called the Irvington Campers. That was our nickname.
It's the Blue Knights
Campers.
now, I believe, correct?
About 20 years ago, they changed the nickname from the Campers to the Blue Knights, and they all of a sudden became a good football team.
Yeah, sometimes it's all it takes. Well, you had the Campers, and then Union is still the Farmers.
The Farmers,
which is,
you're right.
It's funny how it just shows how the areas of the state have changed,
right?
Because you go to Union now, you're not thinking farms as much.
No.
But back when that school first started, and there was some farmland out there. So that wraps up the championship games we had. We're going to touch on the Thanksgiving games real quick before we take a break. Asbury Park over Neptune 26-18. Middletown South over Middletown 27-7. Manasquan over Shore Regional 21-14. And then the big one in terms of the storyline, Long Branch 29-14 over Red Bank Regional, sending out longtime head coach Danny George with a win in this final game. And I know that's important to Danny just to send out more so his seniors with a win, and that's exactly what he'll tell you, and he means it. But the winner of that game gets the Ty Lewis Trophy, which is named after the former Red Bank Regional coach who passed away in his early 40s. And Danny started his coaching career as an assistant at Red Bank under Ty Lewis, then was at Ocean and then at Long Branch. So that means a lot to Danny. So I know for him to be able to hand out that trophy one more time and kind of talk to some of the players on both teams there and go out a winner, that's nice. And Danny's a great friend to us. We had him on earlier in the season, so certainly happy to see him go out on top with a win on Thanksgiving, and we hope he enjoys his retirement. But it's not a stranger. We hope to see him around here.
Is that a perpetual trophy?
The Ty Lewis Trophy, yes. They give that out every year to the winner.
Well, I'm going to make a suggestion that they give it to Danny and let him keep that one.
You know what?
And buy a new one.
Well, maybe keep the trophy going. Maybe buy a new one. You're right, because Danny he might come back every year to. I know how much that means to him, having talked to him. He really revered Ty Lewis and talked about how much it molded him as a coach. So congratulations to Danny. Congratulations to all the schools that just took the field this year, came away with championships, whether it was in a division, sectional, or state championship, and certainly those seniors to get a win on Thanksgiving. There's only 8 teams still left that play on Thanksgiving. To go out with a win, to even play is big. To get that one final game, to go out with a win, that's something they'll remember forever.
And I must say this, that in the era of COVID, the Shore Conference did an outstanding job, preventing this disease from being overwhelming as far as keeping players on the field, keeping teams on the field. I believe I read in the as of this week in the NFL, 79 players have tested positive for COVID. You could almost count on one hand the number of players in the Shore Conference that tested positive.
That number I don't know, but in terms of games lost, I believe it was only 1 or 2, less than a handful.
Right.
So, again, a great job to the players, the coaches, the administration of all these individual schools, just doing what they have to do to stay on the field, and it certainly made it a memorable season, coming off what was a very difficult one last year. That wraps up the results from the last couple weeks, so we're going to take a quick break. I've been talking for half an hour straight, so we'll take a quick commercial break. Then we'll talk back. We'll talk about the divisions from this year and the divisions for next year. So we'll be back with that after this. You're watching the Varsity Link Coach's Corner on the Shore Sports Network. back here at River Rock Restaurant Marina Bar in Brick for the Week 14 Varsity Link Coaches Corner. And we're thankful all year to Varsity Link, the presenting sponsor of this show. We got one more left, and it's flown by. We've had some fantastic guests throughout the year. The hosts of this show, both River Rock, where we're at tonight, and the Office Restaurant Lounge in Toms River, just a tremendous job. The managerial staff, the wait staff, just taking care of all of our guests, taking care of us. Every week we've come here, so much appreciation shown to them. As far as Varsity Link, you might be asking yourself, what is Varsity Link? It's the athlete social media network. So it's a place where athletes can go, post some of their stats, their highlights, enhance their recruitment opportunity as far as getting their stuff out there to college coaches, central location for where college coaches can go to look for kids. You don't have to comb through their Twitter account, their Instagram, their Facebook, try to find what you have to about kids. It's all there in a centralized location. So it's a social media network for athletes, kind of trimming the fat of all the other stuff and getting down to business for college recruiters and for the athletes in terms of what they want out there. So those guys have done a great job in building that platform. They update it all the time. So for more information, go to www.varsitylink.com, and you can also download the app. It's on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Again, Varsity Link, the athletes' social media network. We thank them for their support throughout the season. Also, we have to mention the Butcher's Block in Long Branch all year, the Block Game Day Countdown. Ed's been out doing his thing. He and Steve.
You heard, Bob, by the way, at Thanksgiving, Shore in Manasquan?
I did. I'm going to get to that.
Okay, we gave away
you got
ribeyes.
So that was the new. So all year we've had. You look for the Shore Sports Network SUV and Steve, and he'll wave you down. Come over here, and he had the sheets to sign up to win dinner for 6 at the Butcher's Block in Long Branch, which is they say it's not a renovation, but what other word am I going to use? It's basically a full renovation. They more or less gutted the place and changed a lot around, and from everything we've heard, the place is even more beautiful than it was. They have a full butcher shop, so you can still go on their website, blocknj.com, and place some orders for their fantastic product, chicken,
also
steaks, all these things.
Exactly,
with a full bar. So everyone who's entered has a chance. We're going to do that drawing coming up soon to win. Whoever wins dinner for 6 with limousine transportation there. But we also did at the Manasquan Shore Regional Thanksgiving Day game. Ed and Steve were there as Tommy D'Ambrisi, one of the owners of the Butcher's Block, came down. He brought with him 2 ribeyes, like steaks on hand at the game. So of the people who entered that day, they also drew 2 names out for bringing ribeyes home. And how about that? Thanksgiving, you got turkey in the oven? Well, guess what? Maybe some steak, too, because we got a nice bone-in ribeye to slap on the grill. How about you go to a high school football game and you come home with a ribeye? Nobody thought that was going to happen, but it did. And who were one of the winners?
Well, Mrs. Costantino was one of the winners. You can't make that up.
Mark Costantino,
the coach's wife,
the head coach of Shore Regional.
And then I think there was a gentleman from Brick, I believe. I forget what his last name was, but I interviewed both of them, and they were very happy. I asked them both if they were having that for Thanksgiving. No.
Save that.
Tucked it in the pocket.
Oh yeah.
So they had it this weekend sometime.
Oh look, why not? Yeah, you see the marbling on those things? Those things are pretty darn good.
Are we picking that? Are we picking that dinner for 6, Steve, on Wednesday at the awards show? There you go.
Look at that.
So pay attention.
I'll tune in for that. It's like the 50-50 number, trying to hear the last 3 digits. This time you only need to listen for your last name. The divisions for this year, they're all done. Point Borough is the only game left, but it's not going to affect any division. No. So real quick, we'll run through the division champions. In the American division, it was Rumson Fairhaven, undefeated in that division, 4-0. Wins over Donald Catholic, Wall, Colts Neck, and Toms River North. In the Colonial Division, Middletown South, also 4-0, wins over Manalapan, Southern, Homedale, and Jackson. The Constitution Division, Red Bank Catholic, sensing a theme, 4-0, won that division with wins over Manasquan, Raritan, Red Bank, and Ocean. In the Freedom Division, champion was Long Branch, 4-0, wins over St. John Vianney, Toms River South, Frielborough, and Toms River East. And now we start to get in some divisions where a little bit. Well, really, this was division.
No, this is the only one.
This was division that was the only one that really came out to the wire. The Independence Division, we had co-champions Lacey and Toms North, both finished with 3-1 records in the division, so they share that title. Brick was 2-2, and that one came really down to that the last week there. The Liberty Division, Central dominated the division, 4-0, wins over Marlborough, Matawan, Neptune, and Freel Township, and they almost shut out the whole division, which was impressive. All they needed I believe they gave up a touchdown to Marlborough, and that was it. I think so. To one of those teams scored on them, but they were dominant there. In the Patriot Division, Point Borough just the same. 5-0 wins over Shore Regional, Asbury Park, Barnegat, Manchester, and Jackson Liberty. And then the National Division, Monmouth Regional, the champions, wins over Keyport, Pinelands, Keensburg, Point Beach, and Lakewood. So those were the 8 division champions. And when you look down the line, and not just with the division champions, but some of these overall records you see in front of us, if you're following along at home, I think you could pause if you want to go on the website, check the division standings in the drop down, and follow along with us if you want. But any teams that stood out to you that you would look at as a surprise team?
Well, I think Monmouth Regional came really out of nowhere. Their program has been down to win a championship and go, as you said, 5-0 in their conference. I believe Central really sort of came out of nowhere to win that, go undefeated in that conference. Rumson, Fairhaven, you sort of expect them. Middletown South, Red Bank Catholic, and Long Branch, I think were all consensus at the beginning of the year to be fighting for championships. But Monmouth and Central, I thought, were the 2 surprises there.
Certainly in terms of division champions.
Right.
A team that I look at as definitely a surprise team, and a team that had an excellent season, was Marlborough. A team that we had on throughout the season right here at River Rock. 7-3 they finished the year. And they had some really good wins down the stretch, including the win over Middletown North in one of their regional crossover or consolation games, as everyone knows them as. It's their first winning record since 1999. It's the most wins they've had in a season since the 1994 team won a sectional championship, and that's the second most wins ever in program history. So just a fantastic job by Marlborough. And that is one of the areas that the Shore Conference would point to in these divisions and why they believe it worked. They didn't win their division. They didn't even make the playoffs. But if you ask Marlborough, they know for competitive balance, they're probably not going to, as a Group 5 school, they're not going to have that chance because of who they're playing in PowerPoints and whatnot. But they'll gladly trade that, for the opportunity to compete. 7 wins, talking to their coach, Jason Degato, they couldn't be happier. Really just a lot of positive feelings around that program. And again, 7 wins. They hadn't done that in a very long time. So Marlborough was definitely a team that, certainly surprised me.
Yeah, our old friend there, the athletic director,
Dave
Ryden, every time we saw him at various different functions, so happy with the way they were playing and the season that they had. And as you said, Jason Delgado, great guy on the air. He did a nice job with us and with some of his players. And, happy for Marlborough.
Get some other teams to mention. Like Manasquan, second in the Constitution Division, but 8-3. They had the loss to Red Bank Catholic, got blown out by RBC, but lost 15-12 to Middletown South. And they ended up losing to Woodrow Wilson in the semifinals in that game. And Wilson, of course, went on to beat Rumson. Just a really good season for Manasquan, and they did it in a different way, throwing the ball all over the place. Their junior quarterback, Brett Patton, had a great year. Their junior running back, Jameer Howard, had an excellent season. Cole Kozlowski, their senior wide receiver who we had on this program, what a fantastic year. 750 receiving yards, I believe he had 10 touchdowns. He's a really good defensive player. So really nice season for Manasquan. We mentioned Lacey, Middletown North. That was really a black and blue division. Marlborough and Shore as well. Shore, 7-4 they finished, made it to a semifinal game. And I think anytime you can get north of 6 wins, get to 7 wins, I think you would say that's a solid, at least, season, Ed.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I was impressed with Jamie Mazzocco for sure, one of the top players in the Shore Conference this year. Will probably get many awards at the end of the year, make a lot of the all-star teams and so on. Some new coaches. Howell struggled a little bit under Bill Hill.
They scored a lot of points, though.
They did. And
Howell scored.
They had a great quarterback.
And I will say this about Howell. I don't want me to cut you off, but if you look at Howell's breakdown, go on their team page on shoresportsnetwork.com, and you look at the final scores, like they were in every game. Like they didn't get blown out really, like many times.
No.
Maybe once or twice where it was like a convincing loss.
A lot of close games.
Yeah, like they were in it a lot. So you see 2-8. Certainly that record could have been better. Now, what's the old Bill Parcells line? You are what your records say you is. They didn't win those games, but they had a pretty solid season in terms of being in games and being competitive, and they were fun. Like, I don't think any of their games you could say were boring. I felt like every week it was coming down to the wire. It's something crazy happening.
I'd like to congratulate Brian Duffy, his
Yes.
first year at Neptune, 4-5 on the year after starting out. Was he 0-3, I believe?
I believe they were 0-2 or 0-3,
0-2 or
and
0-3,
they had some problems early in the season with
Right.
program numbers
Right.
and things of that nature, and that's tough. First-year head coach. And look, Brian Duffy, I played with him in high school. You know Brian Duffy as a Brick-Memorial player. He was a great high school player, went to Rutgers. We had a really good career, battling through injuries. He's been a coach on various championship teams as an assistant, Wall at Neptune. He knows what he's doing, but that's hard to keep a team together through losing and maybe issues with numbers. And they turned it around, and they're young and talented. They have some really good players. Davion Pearson, their junior quarterback. Davon Kraft, their sophomore running back, who had, he ran for like 240-something yards on Thanksgiving in the loss. So they've got some really good building blocks. And if they can stick to the program with Duffy, he's shown, especially in the trenches, he's going to build the lineup. They're going to run the ball with power. And, you do that on any high school football program, you're going to win. So, again, they would have liked to have won on Thanksgiving, certainly, but a really good bounce-back performance for the Scarlet Flyers after a slow start.
Let's congratulate Connor Dietz from Brick Memorial, sophomore who was right up there in the top 3 in overall yardage in the Shore Conference.
Yeah.
He returns to lead Brick Memorial.
He does 130 points on the year, and that's the single-season scoring record for Brick Memorial, past the late Mike DeVivi. And that was a record that held, what is that, 1990, 91? Like, that's early 90s. And that's saying something considering the offensive players Brick Memorial's had coming through there in recent years. So, yeah, a lot of young talent, some great seasons. I'm in the process of compiling the final statistical leaders. I want to make sure I get every team included. So reaching out, trying to get all these things on. So look for that on the website. As soon as possible, maybe tomorrow, Friday, in the next couple of days. So
if we're
talking
about surprise team, Pinelands, who came out with 4 wins.
They battled.
Year.
That's the thing. And head coach Matt Fuller, his final season, he announced. I haven't talked a ton about that, but Fuller did a very nice job there at Pinelands. He stepped down, so they'll be looking for a new coach. But Matt did a good job there, and I believe it was 4 or 5 years there. And they battled hard. They were in some games too. And again, 4-win season for a program that has struggled to get, near 500. It's a pretty good job. So, right, we spent a lot of time talking about the championship teams, and rightfully so. But there are teams where you define success a little different, and I think it's important to recognize those teams and what they do. It's a 42-team conference, so it's hard to talk about everybody at length. We try to do our best to highlight, players, big schools, small schools, struggling teams, championship teams, and whatnot. So
I'll mention one more, and then we'll get on to the new
Certainly.
conferences. But Freehold Borough, probably the most inconsistent team. They'd win up, down, ended up 5-5 on the
They did, and it's it's almost fitting in a way, a roller coaster up and down. They had some injuries late in the season. I know Kamor Gill, their outstanding senior. Right. I'll call him senior slash, like Cordell Stewart used to call him. He's the only player that when you look on when the stats are compiled. Now I'm not dumb, but I don't think anyone else is going to make it on there. He's the only one that made the cutoff for passing leaders, rushing leaders, and receiving leaders, because they ended up. Spencer Rushton jumped in and played quarterback at the end of the year for the Colonials, and Gill moved to wide receiver, and he had over 200 yards receiving, a couple touchdown passes, and only about, I want to say 3, maybe 4 games, probably 3 games, I feel like. So it's pretty good, versatile player, and that's the name of the game in that offense. You're versatile, they're going to stick you in there. You're probably going to play quarterback, and you're probably going to have huge numbers. I mean, Deshante Worthy started it, and it happened the last couple of years too. So, Freehold up and down, but a dangerous team, a very well-coached team. Under Dave Ellis, who's one of our favorites. And, look, every year you're going to come in and you look, who's Freehold got a quarterback? Oh, that kid's good. Uh-oh. They're a pain in the neck to deal with. But they lose some really good players, Gil, Yasin Calhoun, and Tyler Rachowski, who moved from defensive end to linebacker and had another outstanding year.
Yep.
On to the divisions. We got 15 minutes left. Probably going to need all 15 to talk about these new divisions. We could break these down probably for a whole hour and do a whole show on them. Naturally, there's coaches who are not happy about it. There's some who are fine with them. That's kind of the nature of what these divisions are. We're staying in the, format of not the No A South, A North, none of that. It's American, Colonial. We go down with the names.
They cut one out.
They did. They cut one. So we went from 8 divisions to 7 divisions. And the main reason for that was last year we had 8 divisions set. Then Modern Day announced they would not have varsity football in, I want to say May, maybe even June.
Mm-hmm.
So that took us from 43 to 42. They had to change the scheduling and everything. So we had, some 5-team divisions, some 6-team divisions. Well, now you do the math. You have 42 teams, 7 6-team divisions. So it ended up being pretty easy like that. And almost, there is, all the divisions are significantly changed. There are,
tell our listeners how the Shore Conference actually comprised these divisions.
Well, to be honest, I don't know the exact. I have an idea.
Right.
In terms of the way they take the average of, they use the OSI,
They do have criteria.
which is the power rating, which is used by the NJSIA for playoff purposes. It includes the strength rating and things like that, and they use the average. Now, whether they use a 3 or a 2 or just last year's, I'm not sure about that because again, that's at their discretion to kind of change that. I know for a while it's been say, hey, look at who these teams are graduating. Now, we've said this all the time. Kevin Williams has said this a lot. You can't go by returning starters because we love coaches. They'll just lie and sandbag and say, no, we don't have these kids back. But in terms of kids who's graduated, if you have a team who went 8-3 and reached the semifinal game, in like a middle division, but then they graduate 15 seniors, well, to move them up too, it doesn't make sense. So I think that's a factor. But again, we have all new divisions. We don't have time to run down them completely, but
Let's start with the top.
let's start with the top one. So coming in, Red Bank Catholic, Manalapan, and Middletown South, and coming out is Tom's North and Colts Neck. So that leaves us with RBC, Donovan, Rumson, Middletown South, Manalapan, and Wall. And that is a heavyweight division, Ed. And a division where there hasn't been in the American division, but again, no room for error, for breathing, any of that stuff.
Interesting there that they did put Wall into the American division, the top division, because, as you said, do they take into account the number of players leaving or whatever? Because they're losing a lot of seniors. Wall,
yes,
big dominated
yes.
by seniors.
They are. They have a good group of juniors, but they're right. They were. This senior class was there as freshmen, a lot of them, and sophomores. So yeah, that's a factor, but they're in there
Who
still.
knows?
So
Right.
then we went out to the Colonial Division. Moving out of that was Middletown South, Manalapan, Holmdel, and Jackson. You had Middletown South, Manalapan moving up, Holmdel and Jackson moving down. Coming in, Long Branch Central, Lacey, Toms North, and Middletown North. So it's basically an entire new division except for Southern, which changes. So it's like we're running through who's in this, but you're better off looking at them on the website because it's not 1 or 2 teams change. It's basically completely new divisions. So Long Branch Central, Southern, Lacey, Toms North, Middletown North. All Group 4 schools except for North and Southern, which are Group 5 schools. What are when you look at that division?
Well, I think Long Branch will be down a little bit. They lose their outstanding head coach and a lot of seniors.
Yes.
Central Regional returns one of the top backs.
And their they returned Chase Gumbrecht, their running back, and their quarterback J.J. Garcia, and a few more. They do lose some really good seniors, but they have some good pieces coming back. And look, you have that kind of season, you're going to get moved up.
We mentioned Toms River North with all their young kids.
Yes.
They will be tough in that division. I know probably Dave Ozowitz, whether he's happy or not, probably happy that he's not in that top division.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Where it's a meat grinder week in and week out, and will play in the Colonial this year.
The Constitution Division, Marlborough, Colts Neck, Freehold, Howell, Jackson Memorial, and Freehold Township. So it's basically the Freehold Regional District.
Yeah.
With Jackson in there.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
And that's
division.
like my old my wrestling. I mean, it's the old District 21. We had all those Freehold Regional districts, and then Howell Jackson would just go up. And look, Jackson's pretty close to Howell and Freehold Township, so it's not crazy in terms of geography. Although we know that's not a huge factor when it comes into that. That's a division hard to get a read on. I mean, if Jackson's Jackson, they could be the favorite in that division, but Colts Neck graduates a ton of really good seniors. Marlborough graduates some impactful seniors, but does have some really good players coming back. A.J. Schwartz, their quarterback. Matt Cassidy, a really good sophomore, playing on both sides of the ball. Freehold, as we mentioned. So that's a division hard to get a read on right now, but it seems pretty fair.
Yeah,
I think when you look at these divisions, as you go down the line, you go, oh, those are pretty good. I think it's the top division, the American division, where a lot of the conversation comes in, because it's this team's in it. Why are they in it? Why isn't this team in it? How come we're in it? We don't want to be in it. It's too hard in the sense of they're complaining about the competition, but I think it's the grinding aspect of it, where you worry about injuries and fatigue and getting to the end of the year and you're battle tested, but like your team is, the walking wounded. You don't have anything left. I think that's the worry that a lot of these teams have, Ed.
Yeah, that American division, I think, except for Wall, who had their problems late in the year with cancellations, I think everyone in that division made the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Every one of them.
You'd be talking about it this year.
Yeah, this past year.
Tom's River North, Colts. Look, Tom's River North finished, last in the division,
right,
and made it to a sectional championship game.
And got a third seed in their conference.
Exactly. So,
of course, the groupings will not be out till later, I believe, next year.
As far as the NJSIA,
yes. NJSIA, to see where everybody plays and falls into their northern
It shouldn't be
numbers.
too much. There shouldn't be too much change in that, especially because we just go with that south and north and then whatever group it is. Now, in terms of teams moving from, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5.
Well, like last year, they moved both middle towns to the north.
Well, yes,
section,
that's one of the few instances where that could happen. We have some schools like in Ocean County. It could be south. It could be
right.
Well, not really.
Most,
it could be south. It's really the Monmouth County teams to be for south or north.
Right.
A team like Matawan, you could always see maybe being in one of those north group threes.
Yeah, I thought that was strange, moving both north. That's how Middletown South got to play Irvington in the championship game. Who obviously
they've been in that bracket though before though. That's not without precedent.
You're right.
And that happens in other sports too, where they'll get moved into there. And you mentioned with the NJSIAA the groupings. We've had a lot, like, for example, Manasquan, a perennial Group 2 team, is in Group 3 this year. So things like that where you see teams moving around. I don't think there should be 5 groups in football, but that's a conversation for another day. Freedom Division, Brick Memorial, Brick Township, Ocean, RBR, Neptune, Tom's River South. I actually like this division.
Yeah.
You keep some rivalries in there, Ocean, Red Bank, and Neptune, and then Brick Memorial, and Tom's River South. So those 2 groups of 3, rivals there, old A South, old B North. Again, it looks like a pretty even division on paper.
Yeah, on paper.
And then, again, it's hard to know anything, how these divisions are going to play out. But
and I know you know a lot, but you don't know who every team has coming back.
We did. You go back and look at the preview show, and we picked who we thought we were going to win.
Exactly.
We were right on some of them, but other
close.
ones, like,
we
I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure I didn't pick Central in that division.
No.
So, or we might have actually. In any event.
Yeah, I think I did pick Central. I know I lost on Keyport.
Yes.
Who finished second.
We all did. Nobody picked Monmouth.
I know.
We either picked the Port or the Berg.
Exactly.
The Independence Division, I like this division a lot. Manasquan, Point Borough, Raritan, St. John Vianney, Monmouth Regional, and Homedale. Now, Monmouth moves up
Let's see
a
what
bunch
they
of
can
divisions.
do with the big boys
now. But this is where I believe that it was taken into consideration who's coming back, because Monmouth brings back a lot of their key players. Their quarterback, Anthony Jen, their running back, Julian Jones. So they bring back some guys. So it's not like they had this great season and lose everybody. So there's that. And then talk about these Group 2, borderline Group 3 schools with Manasquan, Borough, Raritan, Homedale. Like that, those should be some really good games. And you get some rivalry games in there. You get the border war between Raritan and Homedale, the Canal Clash or something like that, I'll call it. Manasquan, Point Borough. And then Raritan, Point Borough, I've met a bunch of times. It's good. St. John Vianney, and Raritan, Homedale, they're all right down the street from each other. So I think that's a pretty good division. All new. None of those teams were in that division last year. So
the Canal, are we looking at the Canal?
No, that's the river.
That's the river. Oh.
Canal is.
Where is it?
The canal is when you drive over 88 and bridge. That's the 88. The bridge on 88 and the bridge on the canal. That's the canal.
I got you.
You should know that.
Yeah, I do. I live a mile away.
The Liberty division.
I do know that every time I go over it, I hit the bridge and I've got to wait for 10
you don't got to
minutes.
tell me. Picking up my kids and
Yeah,
things,
you go,
forget about
Bayhand,
it. I'm never
right.
on time.
Right.
Liberty division: Barnegat, Pinelands, Manchester, Matawan, Toms Rives, Jackson, Liberty. An extremely fair division, I think.
Yeah, I think Tom Reese gets helped there, dropping down.
They do. Barnegat's a team that I've heard from people. Why are they in that division? They consistently 6 wins every year, but it's not like they've been an overpowering team. So on paper, I look at that. I think it's pretty fair. And then the small school division, the Patriot division, is pretty easy. Asbury Park Shore, Keyport, Keensburg, Point Beach, and Lakewood. And that was almost the same division as this year, where it was Keyport, Pinelands, Keensburg, Point Beach. Didn't have Asbury in it, and didn't have Asbury. So basically, you switch Asbury and Shore, and Monmouth Regional. So really, the small school division, put Lakewood in there because I know Lakewood's a Group 3, maybe even a Group 4 school, but they're not playing like that at this point. Their numbers are very low. So Lakewood was in that small school division and finished last in the division. So you're not going to move them up just because they're a bigger school. So That division, to me, makes perfect sense. And that's where we stand with that. I know there are a lot of coaches that are not happy with it and have kind of reached out to their respective ADs. And maybe we see some changes. Maybe we don't. The schedule's not out yet. So stay tuned for any news
Changes?
on that. But
what do you mean changes? You mean they may, restructure?
I mean, will they? I don't know, but I know there's some coaches who want that to happen, who have their own ideas.
I don't
Look,
think
the odds of that happening.
I know they complained last year. Did they?
They did not.
Did they change any
No,
groups?
the only
other
change
than,
was
other
modern
than
day.
modern day,
But that was it. Anything else on your mind?
No, I'm looking forward to getting up early. I know you're going to make your way up to Rutgers and cover that and watch live Point Pleasant Borough. I'll watch on the stream in my pajamas and having my breakfast in the TV room.
I will not wear my pajamas to the game.
I know.
I would be frowned upon.
That's right. You're on the field, right?
Too cold there,
I
too.
know if I went, we used to go up there and do a lot of those games.
We did.
The old WOBM radio network, and Kevin and Matt and myself. And I used to – the thing I hated about Rutgers was up
the
and
stairs.
down. No elevator.
See, MetLife
at
is
Rutgers.
nice. You get the elevator. First of all, you
MetLife-
can't walk down from – I'd still be walking from up there.
Exactly. But
Not at
Rutgers,
MetLife.
up and down. I mean –
It's not the down that's the problem.
every time I did that, and it was many times
Just stay
during
down
the
there.
game, and half the time I'd get to the edge down there, and there'd be a policeman down there and wouldn't let me on the field. I had to show him all kinds of credentials just to get on the field to cover a game. And then, of course, there was Boyd Sands, who wouldn't let anybody on the field, who ran the state.
Gotta love it.
Oh, man, those are the good old days. But anyway, that it proved to me that my heart was in fairly good shape.
There you go.
Going up and down those stairs. I felt like, what's his name, Saleh? What's his first name?
Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh.
Running the stairs.
Every pregame, they show him running the steps before the game. I think he should put a little bit more time in the game time preparation than he did trying
Look,
to get
leave
in
my
shape.
Jets alone, man.
Okay, I will.
That's Ed pregame running the stairs, too, for the block game day countdowns. If you get there
Right.
early enough, you can see him.
Right. I did run him on the visiting side. Oh, wait, there's no steps there? That's why I didn't feel it.
Up and down 3 steps. Gotta love it.
Oh, boy.
Well, once again, we thank everybody for
It's been
taking
fun.
time and
It's been
and
fun,
watching
Bob,
us
and,
tonight and every night this season. It has been fun. Again, as I said at the top, we've had some great guests. We've got to highlight some great programs and great players. And, look, we wish we could have everybody on, but there's only 14 weeks of this. So, again, we've tried to highlight as many teams, as many players as we can. That's what makes this conference special. We have 42 football playing schools right now, and all of them with a bit of tradition of their own, some more than others. But to try to just highlight these kids who go out there and, look, they play the game they love. They give it their all week in, week out. And, when they do something great, we try to recognize that. So, Again, it's been really fun. The one thing we did miss was Kevin all season, but we'll have him back next week, which will be great.
It's not every day where a team could say, we're the only team wearing pads. We're the only team that has all their equipment, and that's Point Pleasant Borough. Everybody else has collected their equipment, collected those game jerseys, and they're away and being reconditioned. Point Pleasant Borough still playing football.
Chance for the Panthers to go 11-1 and cap a special season. That'll be Saturday, 10 a.m. at Rutgers University against Haddonfield. look for that preview of that game on shoresportsnetwork.com tomorrow, along with season-ending coverage. So we'll have all the all-division teams coming out. The standings will be updated, the statistics, all that stuff. Next week, the final top 10, much anticipated. Our season-ending awards will be next week on the show, Wednesday at Assam Sports Center. And then the all-shore teams after that as we put a bow on the season. So it's been great. Again, thanks to our hosts here at River Rock. Every week we've been here. They've done a great job in making us feel welcome. And, of course, making our guests feel welcome.
The Office Lounge.
Yes, the Office Restaurant and Lounge in Toms River. With that, we're going to head out for this week. Thanks to Steve Meyer operating the camera, Tom Tremblay, our engineer, keeping us going. For Ed Sarluca, I'm Bob Adders. Thanks again for watching the Varsity Link Coach's Corner, and we'll see you next week on the Shore Sports Network.